You ever notice how when we procrastinate, we beat ourselves up? We say things like, I'm just lazy, or I don't have enough willpower, or worse, what's wrong with me? But what if I told you that procrastination isn't about laziness at all? It's not about being broken, or weak, or undisciplined. Procrastination is actually a coping mechanism, your brain's way of dealing with stress, fear, and discomfort. The real reason we procrastinate is because we're trying to avoid something that feels threatening or overwhelming. That's it. Let's be real here. When you've got a big task on your plate, maybe it's a project you've been putting off for weeks, maybe it's finally cleaning out that closet, or finally starting that business, you don't avoid it because you don't care. You avoid it because of how it makes you feel. You look at it and instantly feel dread, anxiety, self-doubt. You feel that tightness in your chest, that little voice whispering, what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? So instead of diving in, what do? We scroll, we snack, we binge watch. We get busy doing literally anything else that gives us even a little sense of relief. This is how the brain works. It's trying to protect you. That fear, that hesitation, it's not weakness, it's your brain trying to avoid discomfort. And it's sneaky because it doesn't scream at you. It whispers. It says you can do it tomorrow, or let's just check our email real quick. And suddenly, 5 hours are gone. Sound familiar? But here's the thing. Once you realize that procrastination isn't a character flaw, it's a habit, something starts to shift. You stop judging yourself and start getting curious. You start asking, what exactly am I avoiding here? Because 9 times out of 10, it's not the task, it's the emotion behind the task. We're not avoiding the presentation. We're avoiding the fear of being judged. We're not putting off the workout. We're putting off the discomfort of not being perfect at it. See what I mean? So if we want to stop procrastinating, we've got to start being honest about what's really going on. When you notice yourself reaching for the remote or opening another tab, instead of doing what you said you'd do, pause for a second. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Is it fear? Is it self-doubt? Is it just boredom? Awareness is power, because once you name it, you take its power away. You see it for what it is, a moment of discomfort, not a reason to give up. Now, I'm not saying awareness alone will fix everything, but it's the gateway. It's where change begins. Because when you become aware of the emotion driving the procrastination, you can start making better choices. Instead of defaulting to avoidance, you can lean into action, even if it's just a small one. And let me tell you something, action is the antidote to fear. Every time you take a small step, just one, you're proving to yourself that you can handle discomfort. You're rewiring your brain. You're building trust with yourself. That's what this is really about. It's not about getting it all done perfectly. It's about showing up for yourself consistently, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable. I want you to think about the last time you procrastinated and then finally did the thing. Remember that feeling, the weight lifted, the momentum that followed, the confidence you felt. That's not just relief. It's a reminder of what you're capable of when you stop running from discomfort and start leaning into it. Now look, I know that facing your fears, facing your resistance, it's not easy, it's not glamorous. But that's where growth lives. That's where progress begins. Every time you sit down to do the hard thing, even for 5 minutes, you're training your mind. You're breaking the pattern. You're saying, I don't need to feel ready. I just need to move. And here's the truth. The more you do this, the easier it gets. You start to realize that those big, scary feelings, they pass. They always pass. But the regret from not doing the thing, that lingers. That piles up. And that's what we're really trying to avoid here. Not the task, but the long-term cost of inaction. So the next time you catch yourself procrastinating, remember, you're not broken. You're just human. Your brain is doing what it's wired to do, protect you. But you don't have to obey it. You can interrupt the pattern. You can take one small step, even if you don't feel like it, even if you're scared. Because action, no matter how small, creates progress. And progress, over time, creates freedom. Say goodbye to procrastination by saying hello to honesty with yourself, with your fears, with the patterns that have kept you stuck. Because once you see the truth behind the delay, you take back your power. 3:03 p.m., May 10th, 2025, Amir. So let's talk about that moment when you look at your to-do list, or worse, that giant project looming in your head, and all you feel is pressure. The kind of pressure that makes you freeze, shut down, and think, where do I even begin? That's the overwhelm talking. It paralyzes us. And when we're overwhelmed, we don't take action. We avoid, we procrastinate. But here's the truth. The task isn't too big. The problem is, we're trying to take it on all at once. Imagine you're standing at the bottom of a mountain, and you're staring straight up at the summit. If all you focus on is how high it is, how far you have to climb, you'll talk yourself out of taking that first step. That's exactly what happens in our day-to-day lives. We make the mountain bigger in our heads than it actually is, and we get stuck staring at it instead of moving forward. But what if you didn't have to climb the whole mountain today? What if all you needed to do was take one solid step? You see, the key is breaking big tasks into small, manageable actions. That's where the magic happens. That's how momentum is built. Because when something feels manageable, your brain stops panicking. You stop spiraling in self-doubt or dread. You shift out of paralysis and into progress. And once you start, even just a little, something powerful happens. You begin to believe you can keep going. Let me give you an example. Let's say you need to write a report. Instead of sitting down with the thought, I have to finish this whole thing today, what if you broke it down into steps like open a document, create a title, write 3 bullet points? That's it. You'd be surprised how just getting into motion with something small opens the door to doing more. You're telling your brain, hey, we're not tackling a monster, we're just doing this one piece. This works with anything: your job, your health, your relationships. If you're trying to eat healthier, don't start with overhauling your entire diet. Start with one meal. Just change your breakfast. If you want to get in shape, don't plan a 2-hour workout 7 days a week. Start with a 10-minute walk. The mistake we make is trying to do everything at once, which leads us to doing nothing at all. It's not because you're incapable, it's because your expectations are too overwhelming. And let's be real here, we don't get overwhelmed because we're weak. We get overwhelmed because we care, because we want to do well, because we're aiming for something meaningful. That's not a flaw. That's your passion trying to get through the noise. The problem is, passion without a process becomes pressure, and pressure without a plan becomes procrastination. So give yourself a process, break it down, and I want you to hear this: small actions count. We live in a culture that worships big moves and overnight success stories, but real change happens in the small moments, the quiet choices, the step-by-step progress that nobody else sees. That's where strength is built. That's where consistency. You don't need to leap, you need to move. Now I know some of you are thinking, but I don't know where to start. That's normal. That's why you start with the smallest, clearest next step. Not the whole plan, not the whole staircase, just the next step. If your goal is to launch your own business, the next step isn't build $1 million company. The next step is do 15 minutes of research, send one email, outline one idea. That's progress. And here's the beautiful part. Once you start breaking things down, the fear starts to fade, because fear thrives in the unknown. But when you break something down, it becomes known, it becomes familiar, and when it becomes familiar, it becomes doable. Your brain doesn't sound the alarm anymore. You're not facing a beast. You're just taking care of business, one piece at a time. There's also this ripple effect. When you accomplish one small step, even a tiny one, you get a hit of confidence. You feel capable. You feel in control. And that's addictive, in the best way. You start to crave progress, not perfection. And that shift right there, that's how people change their lives. Not by waiting for the perfect moment, but by creating movement in the mess. You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You need clarity. And clarity comes from action. It comes from stepping into the fog and letting each step reveal the next. Every small win, every task checked off, every little bit of effort, it stacks. And over time, that stack becomes momentum. Momentum becomes consistency. And consistency, that becomes your new normal. So the next time you're staring down something that feels too big to handle, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what's the smallest step I can take right now? Not tomorrow, not later, right now. Because that tiny move forward might just be the one that breaks the pattern and puts you back in control. Progress starts with a single step. Take it. 3:03 p.m., May 10th, 2025. Amir, let's be honest. Our lives are full of distractions. Your phone dings, an email pops up. You remember something you forgot to do yesterday, and before you know it, the focus you had, gone. And we've all said it. I'll just check one thing real quick, and then boom, an hour disappears into the void. Distraction isn't just a nuisance, it's the silent killer of momentum. You can have the best intentions, the clearest goals, but if your environment is working against you, focus won't stand a chance. Now don't take this the wrong way. This isn't about being perfect. This isn't about becoming some productivity machine that never misses a beat. It's about getting honest with yourself. If you want to stop procrastinating, you've got to stop giving your attention away to things that don't deserve it. Because attention is energy, and your energy is everything. We live in a world designed to steal your focus. Your phone, social media, the news, endless notifications, it's all designed to pull you away from what actually matters. And the more distracted we are, the harder it becomes to even start. Because distraction creates chaos. It feeds indecision. It piles on the mental clutter. And then we feel too overwhelmed to move. So what do? We need structure, not rigid, suffocating control, but intentional, protective boundaries. A system that helps you win, not one that punishes you when you fall off track. Think of structure like training wheels for your attention. It gives your brain a clear path to follow, so you can focus on the work that actually moves you forward. One of the simplest ways to build structure is to time block your day. And no, I don't mean planning every single minute. That's not realistic. I'm talking about giving yourself dedicated windows of focus. You pick a task, you give it a block of time, and during that time, everything else waits. You're not answering texts. You're not bouncing between tabs. You're just doing the thing. That's it. And when that block ends, you take a break. Simple, but powerful. Because when you time block, you're training your brain to work with purpose instead of reacting to chaos. You stop letting the day run you, and you start running the day. And that shift, it's a game changer. You'll be amazed at how much you can get done in just 25 focused minutes, compared to 3 hours of distracted drifting. And if you want to take it a step further, try using the Pomodoro technique. It's basic 25 minutes of focused work, followed by a 5-minute break. Do that 4 times. Then take a longer break. Why does it work? Because it creates rhythm. It turns work into a series of short sprints instead of one long marathon. And your brain loves rhythm. It gives you permission to rest without guilt. It keeps your energy fresh. And most importantly, it makes starting easier, because you're only committing to 25 minutes, not the entire mountain. But structure isn't just about time. It's also about space. If your workspace is cluttered, chaotic, or full of distractions, your mind will mirror that. So clean it up. Put your phone in another room if you have to. Close unnecessary tabs. Light a candle. Put on some music that helps you focus. Create a space that signals to your brain, hey, we're in go mode. Don't underestimate how powerful that is. Because here's the truth. Distraction is a habit. And just like any habit, it can be unlearned. But you've got to replace it with something better. Something that supports your goals instead of sabotaging them. And that's where structure comes in. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Now look, some days won't go as planned. Life happens. Disruptions show up. But the goal isn't to never get distracted. It's to build a system that makes it easier to get back on track. You don't drown by falling into the water. You drown by staying there. So when you do get pulled off course, you recognize it. You reset, and you return to the structure. That's how you build discipline. That's how you build trust with yourself. And here's something important. Structure also creates freedom. I know that sounds backwards. Most people think structure limits them, but the opposite is true. When you have clear boundaries and a plan, you stop wasting time deciding what to do next. You stop chasing after a million different things. You move with clarity. You move with momentum, and that gives you more time to do the things you actually enjoy. So if you've been waiting for motivation to strike, forget it. Build a structure instead. Build an environment that supports focus. Build a schedule that respects your energy. And when distraction shows up, and it will, you'll have the tools to shut it down and get back to what matters. The world isn't going to get quieter. It's not going to get less chaotic, but you can get stronger. You can train your focus like a muscle, and that starts by choosing structure over scatter. Every single time, distraction ends when discipline begins.